Hi everyone, my name is Isabella Palmieri and today I'm going to talk about fashion industry and pollution. That is the second largest polluter in the world. Well, in these two photos I show you what happened with the waste that used in the fashion industry and what happened with the accident of the clothes. The fashion industry is in the site of the United Nations. Well, first I want to give an introduction to what is textile industry. The textile industry is responsible for making garments, shoes, and other things that are used when dressing. It stands out for the amount of labor it requires throughout the world and a large percentage clandestinely. It requires a great diversity of products. It is used both natural inputs such as cotton or wool, as well as synthetics such as polyester or nylon. Its products are usually consumed all year round and in a massive way. It belongs to the secondary sector of economy, which transform raw materials into goods for the final consumer. This sector gives rise to the fashion industry since it is responsible for producing what is established. This process of expansion of the industry and its last commercialities volumes combined with the industry need to innovate and present the last fashion trends leads to consolidation for the fast fast fashion concept. What is fast fashion and which is the idea that fast fashion present? Fast fashion is understood as a phenomenon which clothing collections are introduced that follow the last fashion trends and that have been designed and manufactured quickly and at low cost refers to the large volume of clothing produced by the fashion industry based on trends and an innovative need for innovation, which contributes to putting millions of garments on the market and encourage consumers to quickly replace their innovator. Consumering is of the one main responsibility for the proliferation of this type of practice. One of consequence of this is mass production in contrast to the wear time clothing, which is very short. To comply with deadlines that fast fashion has imposed, the production of garments is carried out in the country that have precarious working conditions, generally in South Asia such as Bangladesh, India, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and China. Workers in this country where fast fashion garments are manufactured usually work at 14 to 16 hours a day. Well, now we talk about which are the environmental consequences of the fast fashion that are wastes accumulation, soils degradation and desertification, rainforest destruction, greenhouse gases emission, chemicals addiction, water consumption, water pollution, and microfibers in our oceans. Well, the develop of the other points are fast fashion emit 1.2 billion tons of CO2 per year, more than air travel and shipping combined. Fast fashion produce 20 of global wastewater, contaminating rivers, oceans, drinking water, and soil. 60% of clothes are made of synthetic materials derived from petrochemicals. These do not decompose, but rather break down into smaller and smaller fragments called microfibers. IUCN estimates between 0.6 1.7 million tons of microplastic fibers end up in the ocean every year. One garbage truck of clothes is burned every second. 60, no, sorry, 26, 25 kilograms. I don't know who say that number. The scarce clothing made of synthetic polymers can sit in landfills for 200 years. 97 of fast fashion is produced overseas in developing countries with poor labor laws and human rights protection. Evidence for forced and child labor employed by the fashion industry in countries like Bangladesh, Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, Philippines, Turkey, Vietnam. U.S. Department of Labor. Dangerous worker condition, factory fires, accidents and collapses are included in addition to garment workers. Collapse of Rana Plaza in Bangladesh killed over 1100 workers. The clothing industry employs 40 and 75 million people. 80% is made by young women who frequently face terrible conditions and abuse. Government workers in the third world countries such as Bangladesh make high-level wages. Okay, now I continue to give information that the environmental consequences of fast fashion. This is a report that emits Ellen MacArthur that say clothing production doubled about 60 billion garments were manufactured in 2000, but 15 years later more than 100 billion were produced. Along with this increase in our average, the time that clothes are worn have decreased by 30-60% in the same period. These are garments that are only used 7 to 10 times and are thrown away. In addition, all these problems derived from the fast fashion are related to pollution and the excessive use of natural resources, which threatens a sustainable future and a balanced relationship with the nature. Only the production of clothing represents 10% of CO2 emission globally, the equivalent of what the European Union releases on its own. The pollution generated by the production of clothing enriches the land and water. And not only it is manufactured, even washing clothes leads to an approximated 5,000 tons of microplastic a year in the ocean. It is estimated that 73% of clothing produced annually ends up incinerated or in landfills, which contributes to land and air pollution. In addition to these microplastics, the manufacture of clothing involves the use of chemicals highly harmful to human health, which are released into rivers and other bodies of water. At Greenpeace, we have been working with various clothing brands and fashion stores for almost a decade to eliminate harmful chemicals in garment production and raise awareness of the dangers of fast fashion. In fact, ours was the first campaign that challenges large companies to take responsibility for the pollution effects. Detox My Fashion got 80 brands and suppliers to commit to stop using chemicals such as etholytic. I don't know who say etholytic alkyl phenols, restricted in Europe and the United States. A commitment this that it is still ongoing. Regarding the disposal of garments, every second the equivalent of a full truck is burned or thrown down into landfills, that is 2.6 tons. Producing clothes is actually very expensive under the current model. 2 pound 7,000 liters of water are needed to make just of cotton t-shirts. If the upward trend continues by 2060, oil consumption will triple to 3,000 million tons to produce clothing. The figures vary enormously by country. For example, in Canada, the recycling company Envirotex estimates that 85% of clothing that could be recycled ends up in landfills in that country, which must now add more than 220,000 tons of clothing. In Germany, there is a policy that requires that 75% of textiles must be collected and recycled. Clothing ends up in other countries that do not recycle even close to those high percentage. In some ways, is one of the defining characteristics of the fashion industry. It is estimated that globally less than 1% of the raw material, plastic, cotton, and other fibers used to produce clothing is reduced. For this reason, at an industrial level, what the Ellen MacArthur Foundation proposes is a circular model of production based on 4 fundamental axes. Stop using hazardous substances in production and reduce materials that give off microfibers. Increase the durability of clothing to reduce early obsolescence and accelerated replacement of clothing. Radically improve recycling, sometimes that can be achieved through fashion design or the incentive to use both recycling and recycled materials. Make the use of resources more effective and move towards renewable energy and materials in the production of clothing. Well, now I'm going to talk about the exploitation that search of the fast fashion. One of these countries is Bangladesh, considered worldwide as a textile giant. In this second largest exporter of clothing in the world, the textile industry in this Asian country is evaluated at $28 billion on account of 80% of the Asian country export. Despite the fact that Bangladesh is mainstay in global apparel production, the condition under which those in charge of making clothes that are sold in a big name stores are inappropriate, unsafe, and often inhuman, although it seems that slavery is in almost eradicated practice. Many of the workers of this textile factory in the world work in conditions of slavery. The wages of workers in the textile industry, mainly women, are very low. Not only are wages precarious in Bangladesh, worker conditions are too. This situation was discovered by the world during the tragedy of Rana Plaza textile factory in the capital of the country, Dhaka. The structure of the building collapsed on April 24, where 130 people lost their lives. Half of people killed were women. The fatal accident exposed the appalling condition of the garment workers in the Bangladesh. It also showed the world the real cause of fashion industry. Workers in Bangladesh, it also showed the world the real cause of the fashion industry disagreed for workers' rights. Another reality that was uncovered was that several girls were also found among the rebels. So it could be presumed that there was a situation of child employment. Well, now I'm going to show you a video that shows the exploitation that suffered the persons in Bangladesh.
Es duro también ver que la gente, que estos trabajadores de